All right, what's up, guys? Back with another podcast episode, and this week I'm doing another solo podcast because there's so much going on this weekend that we kind of had to divide and conquer some work. So we have to record a podcast today. Tomorrow, the host versus co-host video goes out, which I'm still finishing the edit on. And then on Friday is the Ripple review. So I needed Isaac working on some of those while we did a podcast. And honestly, there wasn't that many topics this week, so I figured it'd be easier for me to just cover it quickly while we were working on some other things. But this week, main topic is going to be covering the Ripple versus the Pro 4. I just played a tournament this weekend, so I have some thoughts about both of those since I used both paddles. Some quick paddle updates. And then I also, in the kitchen, want to tell you guys about my back pain story. You guys have heard me talk about this on and off, but I've never really talked about it in depth, and I recently did a newsletter, and it got way more responses than any other newsletter I have ever done. So I thought it was worth sharing on the podcast as well. But anyways, first update I wanted to give you guys is that the home court is still not done. So it ended up raining a bunch last week, and there's not a ton of rain in the forecast this week. There's maybe tomorrow. So I'm semi-optimistic that the court finally gets painted. But at this point, dude, it is just torture waiting for this thing to get done because there's so much content that I want to film and will be so much easier to do when I can do it in my own backyard. So just every day I have to stare at this blank pad. I'm just like, oh gosh, come on, let's get this thing done already. So hopefully next week, but the end of this weekend, we go to Florida for the bread and butter nerdy tourney where we're playing against a bunch of other content creators. So even if it's painted this week, I can't use it till next week anyways. So hopefully it's just done when I get back, because that would be awesome. All right, the next thing on the list is the Holbrook Arma releases on June 10th. So I didn't previously have a release date for that, but releasing on June 10th, I don't think we're going to have a full review out on the Arma by that day because I will actually be in China by that point with some other content creators to see a pickleball factory in China. So we'll have some content, probably not a full review, but I am excited to talk to you guys more about that paddle because, as you know, I've really been enjoying it. Haven't had any issues with durability yet, but again, I'm sure you guys have all seen the x-rays. Doesn't look good. There's a lot of things about it that are pretty sketchy, so I am worried about its long term. But if it, by some miracle, doesn't have issues, that paddle will be pretty great, I think. So we'll see. Keep you posted on that. And then one other quick paddle update. So I haven't gotten to talk about the Friday Fever. A lot of you wanted me to talk about that. That is one of the paddles that I want to cover when my court is done in a slightly different format than what we've done before. So that will get covered at some point, but it's not going to get covered before the price increase. So at launch, it was $99, and then I think it's after May 31st or like end of May, it's going to go up to $129. So I just wanted to let you guys know that if you were planning to pick one up, I would do it now before the price goes up on it, at least if you care about the extra, 30 or so dollars that it's going to go up. But I have gotten to play with it a little bit, and I do think it's a good paddle, especially for $99. I mean, I would put it right up there with the Vatic Prism, the 11624 Jelly Beans, like all of those $100 paddles. It's right up there with them. And in terms of getting one that has more power, this has more power than those for sure. However, even though it has a Gen 3 design, it is not a power paddle like a Mod, a Paddle Tech, the Arma, a Ripple, a Pro 4. Like, it is not one of those. Maybe as it breaks in, because that's kind of what all these Gen 3s do, it loosens up and starts to hit quite a bit harder. But I would have probably placed it around all court to all court leaning power. But as far as Gen 3 goes, it was definitely on the softer side of Gen 3. But I think more power than what you traditionally see at that $100 price point. So I think it's a very compelling offer. And if people, were willing to spend $300 on other Gen 3s, then $99 feels kind of like a no-brainer. But just know that longevity is probably going to be questionable. It is a Gen 3. All of them seem to have questionable longevity. So just be aware of that. It just might matter less because, well, it's $100 instead of $300. All right, so those are my quick updates. Now I just want to talk to you guys about the Ripple versus the Pro 4. So, I've had quite a bit of time on all of these paddles now, and I think my thoughts are quite a bit more nuanced than when I first got the Ripple. So this weekend, we had a big local tournament, and I got to play in 4-5 and 5-0. I actually wasn't even planning to play in this tournament, but then I got asked by two different people to play on 2 different days, so I figured, hey, I'll play both. So I played 4-5 with the Ripple, and then I played 5-0 with the Pro 4. And that wasn't even the plan going in. Honestly, I was planning to play with my Carbon, but then I thought, the Ripple review is coming up pretty soon. I should probably just play with the Ripple and get some more thoughts. So that's why that happened. And I'll just give you guys the quick spoiler. I did better in 5-0 with the Pro 4 than I did in 4-5 with the Ripple. So in 4-5, I believe we went 3 and 3 on the day. So there was pool play into a bracket. So we lost we lost 2 in the pool play, 1-3, and then we lost our first game in the bracket. And then in 5-0, we went 4-1 in pool play, and then won a bracket game, and then lost a bracket game. So 5-2. I believe I said that correctly. But anyways, it should be 5-2 no matter what I said. So anyways, thought that was just kind of interesting. But let's talk about my actual thoughts with the paddle here. So the first thing with the Pro 4, the Ripple that I have noticed is the tingy feel that I was describing when I first got the paddle has started to go away. So the paddle that I have the most amount of time on right now is the R4, and I think that is going to be the most popular one just because of how the swing weights go. The R1 is just, I think for a lot of people, it's way too heavy. It's not that no one will like it, but it alienates a lot of people. And the R2, a lot of times when you buy a standard shape, you're buying it for a lower swing weight. It's more maneuverable. And the R2 is, up there with some elongated paddles that are, in the average range, I would say. And then the R4 is a little below the R2 as a hybrid at around like a 117-ish swing weight. So I just think the R4 is probably going to be the most popular because it's closest to a real hybrid in terms of swing weight. But anyways, my R4 has definitely softened up. So there was a tingy feel that when you hit the center, it is really hard to describe, but it's just like not the most pleasant thing in the world. Like it felt quite stiff, and it was just kind of this like weird feedback in my hand that was like, compared to the beta, I didn't love how that felt. So that was kind of a sticking point for me. But the more I've used the paddle, that's actually started to go away because I have a brand new R4 and a used R4, so I've been able to hit them side by side and see what's changed. And they're definitely different. The brand new R4 feels louder, and the used one feels like it's gotten a tiny bit quieter and doesn't have that tingy feel. So I do think, at least if it holds true with all of the other units, that, probably I would say after maybe 10 or so hours of use, that tingy feel goes away a little bit, which in my opinion is a good thing, because I think especially when you got out towards the edges, it was such a different feel from the center that it like really threw me off. And now I feel like the difference from center to edge in terms of how it feels is closer than when it was brand new. So I think that's a good thing. Next up, I want to talk about spin. So I think one thing that's going to be really important for people to understand when they consider buying this paddle is I think there's going to be 2 groups of people. There's going to be the people who played the beta, and there's going to be people who never played the beta Ripple. And I think it's going to be really important for people to understand which bucket they fall into, because if you played the old Ripple, you're going to have an idea of what you expect the Ripple V2 to be. And if you've never hit one, you have no expectation and you don't really know what you are missing. With the old Ripple, the spin was just out of this world. I want to say when we ran an RPM test on it, we were hitting somewhere between 2,300 and 2,400, which is the highest RPM I've ever tested, and by like a good margin. I mean, you could shape the ball in ways that I don't think I really realized were even possible with a pickleball paddle. So when I got the new one, the spin went down to around the 1900s. So when you're talking about a 400 to 500 RPM decrease, that's a very big difference. So my initial impression was, yeah, the spin on this paddle's not that great. And I think the spin is largely fine and competes with most paddles out there, but it's that comparison to the old one that just made me go, holy cow, like this thing kind of sucks in terms of spin. And I think what I've also realized is that the amount of spin it does generate is maybe not quite enough for the amount of power that the paddle has. Also, sorry about my voice there. I'm not really sick anymore, but like my throat, I'm constantly having to clear it. So if I have to do that a couple times on this podcast, that's why. Anyways, yeah, I just think the amount of power that it has, it's like it doesn't have enough spin to make you shape the ball the way you want. Like if it had less power, it would almost be easier to shape the ball. So I think that was another thing I was noticing. But as I've played with it more and gotten used to it, I would say the spin is acceptable, but it's not exceptional. Like it's fine. I don't think most people are going to like complain about it, but I definitely feel like there are other paddles where I can shape the ball better. Like for me personally, I feel like I can shape it better on a Pro 4, and I definitely feel like I can shape it better on my Carbon True Foam than both the True Foam or than both the Ripple and the Pro 4. So I definitely don't think it's like a top tier ball shaping paddle anymore, but you know, compared to my initial impression, better than what I first thought. Now, as far as power goes, I think there's been a lot of debate about, is it hotter than a Pro 4? Is it not hotter than a Pro 4? And I think it's going to come down to a couple things. I've hit these extensively side by side, going back and forth. And I think it's really going to come down to how broken in is your Pro 4 and how broken in is your Ripple. I think if you are coming from a Pro 4 that you've used like since launch day, you're probably going to think it hits harder than the Ripple because it has so much time on it. And, you know, as these Gen 3 paddles do, they tend to heat up a little bit. Or, you know, if it's starting to core crush, it's going to be a lot. So I think if you're comparing it in that way, that's where it gets a little bit trickier. And you might see some opinions of like, this one definitely hits harder, or no, this one definitely doesn't hit that hard. In my opinion, they're not that far off from each other. I think they both hit hard. They're both power paddles. They are both in the upper realms of power. I think if you're talking about, I want the paddle that hits the hardest, the Ripple and the Pro 4 are going to be the paddles that fight each other for that top spot right now. I think the conclusion that I'm coming to right now is that I would probably say that the Ripple just barely beats out the Pro 4 in both pop and power. Pop maybe a little bit more so than power. Power, I feel like, to me, is pretty similar, but pop on the Ripple is what I think is higher. And as I played with them this weekend, I feel like I could tell in mid-court or drops or even some dinks, I was a little less confident on the Ripple. And usually for me, that tends to be because of more pop. And then on the Pro 4, I feel like I didn't have that issue nearly as much. Oh, and just for context, since I didn't mention it before, the Scorpius Pro 4 14 millimeter is what I played with this weekend. The other thing that I think makes telling the difference apart in terms of pop or power a little bit trickier is the Pro 4 is louder and also has this like very connected feel when you hit the ball. Like it's a really nice feeling and it just sounds really aggressive when you hit the ball. And the Ripple, in my opinion, doesn't have that same aggressive sound and the ball feels more muted off of the paddle. And I think because it's heavier and harder to swing, you basically just get this combination of a lot of things that make it harder to tell how hard you're hitting the ball, right? Like I'm using more effort to swing the paddle because it's heavier. It's more muted, so it's a little harder to tell how the ball is coming off. And because the sound isn't as loud, you're now losing that sense as well to gauge the power. But I think when I'm hitting them, I can tell that the Ripple hits very hard. So all that to say, I think that's where some of the discrepancy comes from in terms of like I feel like this one hits harder, or no, this one hits harder. At the end of the day, both power paddles. I don't think you're going to be upset in terms of power, no matter which one you buy. Next up, the swing weights. So this has obviously been kind of the hot topic, and I'd say the main thing that's making the Ripple less attractive right now. The R1, you're seeing a range of about like 123 to maybe 128. Mine came in at 126, and it's heavy. It is just, at the end of the day, even if you look at databases, that is in the upper percentiles of paddles for swing weight. It's out of the norm for what most people use. That doesn't mean that there aren't people out there that will appreciate that. if you like heavy paddles, you're probably going to love that the R1 has a lot of plow through to offer for you. So it's not that there's no one that it's for, it's just that it alienates a significant amount of people. I mean, I even think with the Reload paddle that came out, that had a swing weight of maybe like 122 to 124, and it had a slightly higher balance point. Well, the swing weight and the balance point on the R1 are even higher. So if the Reload with a replaceable face, which was a pretty compelling selling point, wasn't able to convince people, I feel like a 126 swing weight is going to be even harder to convince people that it's worth it. Now, the R2, like I said, quite a bit heavier than a standard shape paddle usually is. When I play with it, I don't hate it, right? My True Foam is somewhere around the same swing weight, that like 118 to 119 range. And I've been playing with it, and it's not a swing weight that I love, but I can get over it for how much I like the carbon. The issue that I think the Ripples have is that not only are they heavy out of the box, but the sweet spot seems to have shrunk with these new versions. So what makes that tricky is you now have a heavy paddle, and if you want to improve the stability of it with weight, you're going to make it even heavier. So even if you could tolerate the swing weight where it's at, by adding weight to make it play the way that I think a lot of people will want it to play, now the paddle is even heavier than what it was. And I think that's where the big hang up for me is, right? It's like I have my R4 here, and I didn't put much weight on this because I didn't want it to be that much heavier. I didn't really want to go over a swing weight of 120. But if you're watching, I took about, I don't know, what would I say that is, like 5 inches of 0.5 gram tungsten tape, and I did it all the way at the top of the handle, just up as high on the paddle as it could go. And this only bumped the swing weight up to like 118, right around there, something like that. So it didn't get that much heavier. And I do think that the weight just helped increase the stability a little bit. I would still like a little bit more, especially when I play it side by side, my Pro 4. I just think the stability is noticeably better on that. But I'm just not willing to add more weight and make it even heavier, and then probably harder for myself to use. So that's what I would say with the swing weights to think about is you're probably going to want weight because of the stability, and then it's going to be harder to use. Other thing I want to talk about is durability is still in question on the Ripple, right? I don't think by the time these reviews come out that there's going to be probably many, if any, reports about breaking. I mean, unless a paddle is so poorly built that it breaks in the 1 to 2 weeks that we play test it, or however long many other people are testing it, it's just hard to give you like a full consensus on like, yes, it is now broken or not broken. And again, how hard or how not hard you hit, how often you play or don't play, like that all plays into it. But what I will say is it's great that Ronbus did some of their own break-in testing at the factory. But the only counter I would say to that is for 2 years now, factories have had that same machine that, whacks the paddle in the sweet spot to try and break it in. When core crushing became a thing, that machine got used a lot, and a lot of companies would use that as like a selling point. Like, hey, look, we did 1,000 tests or 1,000 hits or 3,000 hits or 5,000, whatever number of hits. And we cut the paddle open and look, the core is still intact. In fact, Ronbus actually did that with the Pulsar series. And that was a big selling point of like, hey, we did this grid and we did some other stuff to improve the core durability. And the Pulsar still core crushed. So there is no like, if it's built this way, it's probably just going to break. And so I appreciate that these tests get done because I think more manufacturers should be testing the durability of their products. But just because it did well in a couple of those tests does not mean that it's never going to break or have some issues. So again, appreciate that that is done, but I would still be just I'd be questioning the durability. The beta versions all had some issues related to that. So I'm just a little hesitant at $280 to just tell people, hey, yes, no issues. They did some break-in testing, go buy it. If you're buying this, you're buying it with the same thought of any other Gen 3, just like the Pro 4. It will break at some point, or it may have issues. We don't know. So just keep an eye out on that. And then the last thing I want to say is We talked about the handle when we first got these, and I will say, playing with this more, the handle still drives me crazy. I don't think it's going to drive everyone crazy, but this handle is just one of the squishiest handles I've ever used. And I think where it impacted me the most is like when I would go for a drive or even a counter where I like tense my hand up a little bit more for a big swing coming, like feeling my hand sink into the handle just annoys me. Like it doesn't feel super comfortable. And then when I go to something like the Pro 4, it's like immediately obvious to me, for my personal taste, how much more I prefer the handle feeling very firm and my hand not sinking into the handle when I press. So if you are picky about handles, keep that in mind. For the vast majority of people out there, I don't know that you're really going to care. And again, I would put it at the very bottom of like annoyances. Like we're being extremely nitpicky when I talk about the handle, but it is enough that it annoyed me. And even during the tournament, I would think about it when I would hit certain types of shots. Like, man, that was just kind of weird. So keep that in mind. All right, so those are some of my updated thoughts on the Ripple. Now let's talk about the Pro 4 Scorpius. So I've been playing with this for a little bit now, but the tournament is the first time that I've put it through like, well, a tournament, something more competitive where you're under pressure. So, and I've already done that with the Perseus Pro 4. I had actually played a tournament with that, and it was just a little too hot for me, a little too hard to use. And that was not my experience with the 14 millimeter Scorpius at all. In fact, I think it's some of the best pickleball that I have played in quite some time. Like I felt really confident playing with the Pro 4, and I don't know if I've just gotten more used to power paddles or maybe I just had a really good day where I was just feeling it. But yeah, I was loving this paddle at the tournament. I just felt like I wasn't just basically all my shots felt very confident. Drops, dinks, like drives, nothing really felt bad, I guess. So for the tournament, loved it. But let's just kind of go over some of the comparison here. So a lot of my Pro 4 thoughts versus the Ripple is going to be coming from the Scorpius versus all of the Ripple variants. I have hit the Hyperion, I have hit the Perseus at side by side with these to compare, but most of my thoughts are going to come from the Scorpius. So the first thing I would say, this is going to be extremely subjective and will depend on the person, but the Pro 4, I much prefer how it feels compared to the Ripple. So I don't mind muted paddles. I mean, I'm playing with a carbon, and a lot of people find that that is a really muted paddle, but there's something about the feedback of the Ripple versus the Scorpius that I just don't like nearly as much. Like certain shots, it felt harder to tell how I was hitting it. And with the Scorpius, like I know exactly how I hit the ball. Like I can feel it. I feel very connected to the ball. Like I know where it's going. And sometimes with the Ripple, I felt like placing it was a little bit more difficult because of how it felt off of the face. Whereas the Scorpius, I just didn't have that. Now, of course, it's going to be very subjective, right? Like if you love muted paddles, if you love something like the GX2, then by all means, the Ripple's probably in your realm of paddles you enjoy. But if you like something that gives you a little bit more firmness, or you can like really feel it when you hit it, then I think the Scorpius or the Pro 4 feel is something you're going to like quite a bit more. The other thing I would note, so the Scorpius that I have, I did put quite a bit of weight on this to improve the stability of the paddle. I don't think it's awful out of the box, but it's definitely in an area that I think could use some improvement. And since the swing weight on this paddle starts so light, I think it's somewhere between, like I want to say mine is like 110 or 111. You've got plenty of room to go up in terms of swing weight or stability. After adding all of this weight, which is, if I had to guess, like 8 to 9 inches, maybe even 10 inches possibly, the swing weight went up to 116. And this is, again, 0.5 gram tungsten tape. And the stability and sweet spot size felt a lot bigger than the Ripple playing with this. So even with all of this weight added to it, which has increased the stability drastically, it's still lighter than the R2 is out of the box, where it has some stability issues. Now, I will say of all the Ripples, I think the R2 has the best stability naturally. It is a standard shaped paddle, but I think it could still use just a little bit more. And if I'm comparing this weighted up Scorpius to that Ripple, then I think there is a big difference in terms of the sweet spot. And when I was at the tournament and I would go for a reset, I just felt like I had more margin for error. So I think that's a big pro for the Pro 4s, is that with the swing weights they have, you'll be able to customize them and get them in an area you want, whereas with the Ripple, you're not going to have nearly as much room for that. Now, a second ago, I was just talking about the durability of the Ripple and how we don't really know how the durability is going to hold up, but we do basically know how the durability holds up on the Pro 4 at this point. And that is, it's better than last year's mod and last year's Gen 3. However, it's still not unbreakable. There are still people core crushing these. There are still people having issues with them. And the rate, while a lot lower, those issues still exist. So basically we have the Ripple where it's an unknown on the durability. And then on the Pro 4, we basically know how these are going to play out. You will have to warranty these at some point. And if you hate the warranty system, then the Pro 4 might just be out for you. If you don't care about that, then sure, go for it. You know, it plays really well. But we basically know that this has some level of durability issue. Now, another thing when we're talking about the power differences between the Ripple and the Pro 4s is, again, the Ripples start at a higher swing weight out of the box. So if you were to match the swing weights of the Pro 4s to the Ripples and make them more of a one-to-one comparison, the Pro 4s are probably hitting just as hard, if not harder, than the Ripple because there's so much more weight added to them. Again, the Scorpius starts out at like a 110 to 112 swing weight. So if you go up 6 to 8 points in swing weight, that's a considerable amount and is going to swing quite a bit harder. And if you took a Hyperion, which I think has a swing weight somewhere around like 116 to 118, and you go up 8 to 10 points to match it to the R1 Ripple, 8 to 10 points is a significant amount. Like that thing is going to be a rocket and a plow through monster and even be more stable when you build it up that way. So I think it's really important for people to understand that without the swing weights being even, there's a potential for a larger gap in power. But if you were to equalize the swing weights and put them stock exactly the same, then I think that's where you might start seeing the Pro 4 hit even harder than a Ripple. So if you can tolerate the swing weight of some of these Ripples, and that's how you like your paddles, well, then the Pro 4 might hit even harder if you weight it up to that same weight. Now, the last thing I just want to throw in really quick is comparing the 16 millimeter Pro 4s to the Ripples. Because I think, you know, the Ripple doesn't have a 16 millimeter equivalent, but I think it's worth talking about. So to me, the 16 millimeters overall just have more pop and power than the 14 millimeters. I think the 14 millimeter, it's easier to generate some of the pop, but I think the top end, the 16, is just higher. Like I always have a harder time using the 3S 16 millimeters or the Pro 4 16 millimeters. And the only thing I can think is just that like it flexes more and throws the ball a little bit more. But every time I use it, I find the 14 millimeter, specifically only for the Pro 4s, easier to use for myself. So, and I also think that with the 16 millimeters, the nice thing is the sweet spot's better. They really don't need that much weight. They're already very stable. And the feel, while I love the feel of the 14 millimeter, the 16 millimeter is just exceptionally good feel. Like it has this nice, like, more plush feel. It doesn't like vibrate much. Like the 16 millimeters just feel very good. Like if I could just pick feel out of all three of those, the Ripple, the Scorpius 14, and then like a Scorpius 16, the Scorpius 16 feels so much better to me, but I just play better with the 14 millimeter. So I think the 16 millimeters are definitely worth comparing just because they feel really good, and I think their top end power and pop is up there for sure. So yeah, that's most of the comparison. As you guys can probably tell, I personally have a heavy preference towards the Pro 4 models, but I don't think the Ripple is a bad paddle. The more time I've gotten to spend with it, the more I think it has a valuable place in the market. I think there are going to be a lot of people that enjoy the paddle, and especially if you never knew what the beta was and you don't really know what you're missing, then I think that's where you're going to be able to probably appreciate the paddle more because you don't have the comparison to the old unit. So I think it's good. It just has some drawbacks in terms of swing weight, but I do think as it gets used more and it kind of softens up and gets rid of that tingy feel, like the paddle feels more comfortable to play with, and I think there's a lot of appeal to it. One of the things that I think is probably going to be a feature that people like is it has this like bouncy feel to it. Like it's not really a spring. It just kind of feels like it bounces. Like when you hit one, you'll probably know what I'm saying, but I think there's people who would be really attracted to how that feels. It's either going to be a love or hate it, but I do think that feel is something a lot of people are probably going to appreciate. So anyways, I hope those thoughts kind of help you guys out. I know the Ripple is coming out this Friday, so hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to help you decide if you want to buy one or if you don't want to buy one. But we will also have a full in-depth review coming out on Friday as well. All right, the last thing I want to talk about on this podcast is my back pain story. So if you guys have followed the podcast for, the last few years, you've probably heard me talk about my back and say that it doesn't feel that great. But I wanted to tell this story more in depth because I think it's really important. So a lot of times on the podcast, I always think like, okay, we are a gear-focused podcast. No one wants to hear about things that aren't related to paddle gear. And before I sent this newsletter out, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, no one cares, dude. Like people are going to say like, hey, stop talking about these things. But I think we all play pickleball, and I think there's a lot of people who experience back pain or really any type of injury. And I think what you can learn from my back pain story is how to avoid getting injuries, whether it's your elbow, your shoulder, whatever it is, and just take better care of your body. So anyways, going to talk about this, and I hope even if it just helps one person out there, then it would be worth it, because the pain I've experienced for the last few years has not been great. Okay, so let's talk about how this happened. So the first time that I really ever experienced really bad back pain was June 2023 when I went to a Jordan Briones pickleball camp. It was a 2-day intensive, and Will and I went and played pickleball the day before, and I believe that's when I hurt my back. Like I just, all of a sudden, just like, it felt really bad. Like my back really hurt. It was like hard to bend over. It was like hard to walk. Like it just didn't feel good. And then the first day of the camp was really, really hard to get through. Like I was in a lot of pain. Lunging was really hard. And, in pickleball, you're doing a lot of lunging. So it was really hard to get through that first day. And there was a lot of times where I was just sitting down and I felt almost embarrassed just because I think I just had this perception that people thought I was making it up. Like, oh, Chris isn't playing pickleball that well, so how convenient of an excuse is it to say his back hurts? That's what it felt like, everyone was thinking while I was in pain. So it wasn't great. Got through it somehow. I have no idea. I will say there was a lot of, and I still do this actually, is if I'm on the left side and I'm brought out wide for a dink, a lot of times because of my back pain, I have had to put my left hand, my non-dominant hand, on my left leg to support myself when I'm bending over because my back can't support the load. So like I have to like stiffen my arm and brace it against my leg to kind of act like as another support. If you guys watch some of my, recent tournament videos, you can actually probably find that. Sometimes my back is doing better and I don't have to do that as much, but yeah, it still happens. So anyways, could barely walk, felt really bad at that 2-day intensive. I ended up going and getting a massage. That helped, but I still woke up the next day in a lot of pain. Anyways, went through the camp. Probably about a week later, my back was mostly fine. And then a year later, almost exactly a year later, actually, it was probably a few weeks earlier, I was playing some rec games and my back did not feel good. I could tell I wasn't doing great, but I guess I didn't know how bad because I went for some type of shot where I bent over and like immediately I felt my back go out. Like I just knew something was way off. It was the same thing as what happened at the Briones camp, but honestly, it was probably even worse. And I immediately packed up my bag and left. I just knew I couldn't play anymore. It was maybe a group of 10 people, and I just left. And even the drive home, like sitting, I was in a lot of pain. I got home, I got on the couch, and I was like, I'm just going to lay here for a little bit. And after being on the couch for like 10 minutes, I could not get off that couch. Even rolling over on the couch put me in a significant amount of pain. Like I'm just talking about going from my back and like rolling over onto my shoulder. I wish I could properly express to you guys how difficult that was and how much pain it put me in. And at that moment, I was like, okay, something is really, really wrong with me. Like, I don't know what I just did to my back, but it's not good. And for the next several weeks after that, I continued to stay in pain. Like every day, laying down was hard, walking was hard. If I was getting in a car, that was difficult. And this is kind of when I got a little bit more desperate and was like, I need to look into what's going on and figure this out. I would say that the back pain that I felt from that was the most amount of pain I have felt in my adult life. Like I can't think of anything that even comes close to how bad my back hurt. And now before I get into some of the things I tried, I kind of want to tell you guys about how I got here, because now that I've done a lot of research and I've been through a lot of things, I feel like looking back, it's like very clear how I got here. So I've done video production for like the last 13 years. And if you do video production, you know how much sitting you do at a desk, especially if you're an editor. Like you are just sitting constantly. And when I started Pickleball Studio and I went full time, I went really hard at it. So I was working 12 plus hours a day. If I wasn't at a pickleball court hitting a paddle, which was, at the time, probably 3 hours a day, maybe sometimes even more because I was just crazy back then. But 12 hours a day, 9+ hours a day, I'm sitting at my desk working. I'm editing a video. I'm researching content. I'm, creating a newsletter. I'm learning about all these things. I'm just at my desk. And, frequently I would be up early and then up past midnight to get more work done. I've kind of always been like a little bit of a workaholic. And, if I'm telling you I work 12-hour plus days, that probably gives you a pretty good indication. But I say all of that just to say it was a significant amount of sitting. And even in the last year or two, I would say while I am working less because I found slightly better work-life balance, it's still a significant amount of sitting. I mean, as soon as I get up and I eat breakfast, I go sit at my desk and I start working. And then usually there's a break in the middle of the day to go play pickleball. And then I come home and I sit some more. And then after I finish work, I'm probably sitting on a couch, hanging out with my wife. So there's just a ton of sitting, which is not great for you. So that's kind of how we got here, is just as I've been sitting so much, like all my muscles are getting tight from playing pickleball. I wasn't stretching. And then my muscles are getting weaker from all of the sitting. And so that's where I think a lot of this came from. And especially, as I've been in pickleball, 4 years, about something like that. I was younger and I think I just used to believe my body was invincible. And now that I'm getting older, I'm about to turn 29, I'm learning that my body's not invincible. So there was probably a little bit of ego the first couple years going like, nothing can hurt me. And boy, was I wrong. So anyways, let's talk about what I tried. So after that injury happened, I was like, okay, I probably just have tight muscles. So I'm going to do a ton of stretching. I tried like every stretch you could think of, like things for your ankle, your calves, your hip flexors, my back, like hamstring, everything I could stretch. I tried to stretch it. And I will say, those stretches helped and would give me some level of relief, but eventually I would always throw my back out again. Like maybe I'd go a couple months and then I'd throw my back out and I'd be like, geez, we're like right back to where we were. And this cycle would just keep happening. So eventually I realized like, okay, stretching is not working. Then I bought this book called Back Mechanic by Dr. Stuart McGill. He's kind of praised as a really big back expert, and that book was helpful. So I would say you don't need to buy the book. However, if you're in a lot of back pain, it's probably worth it. The main thing you need to know from that book is he has these exercises called the Big McGill 3. You can find them all over YouTube. They are all over the place. And I actually found these exercises before I bought his book. And the first time I ever saw these exercises, I went, there is no way that can help my back pain. Like those are way too basic to possibly do anything for my back pain. Like, I used to work out a decent amount and I was like, the weight I'm throwing in the gym, which was not that much, by the way. I mean, you guys can see me. I'm not that big of a guy, but I was like, the weight I can do in the gym, these body weight exercises definitely aren't doing anything. So I didn't take it that seriously until I got the book. But anyways, you can find the Big McGill 3 on YouTube. In that book, he also talks about ways to avoid flaring up your back, like movement patterns, things you do during the day that probably aren't good for you. So that is a thing of the book that, if you're in a lot of pain, would probably be helpful for you just to avoid flaring your back up. So anyways, that's the book. Then I also did a significant amount of research on YouTube about like back pain, like what could it possibly be? And let me tell you, you're going to find a lot of different answers because there's a lot of different things it could be. You may have herniated a disc. You may just have tight muscles. Like that could be your issue. You might just have tight hip flexors. You might have weak glutes. You might have weak lower back muscles. It could be your hamstrings. Like there's a lot of things it could be. So I'm just going to tell you right now, if you go down this rabbit hole, be prepared to find a lot of people who say, this is the thing you need. This is your problem. Do this. And it's an endless rabbit hole. Then I finally got fed up trying to find the solution myself. And I went to a physical therapist. And actually, the story behind this is kind of crazy. I was actually on my way to a pickleball tournament, and I had been dealing with a lot of back pain. And I ran into this guy at the airport, and he goes, Chris Olson from the pickleball studio? And I was like, yeah, hey, and no one's ever recognized me in the airport. So I was like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, you probably don't remember, but I played pickleball with you years ago, like at a rec center or at a park. I don't remember which, but he's like, long time no see, like, how you doing? And so I told him, just like how the business was going. And somehow my back pain got brought up. And he's like, oh, I run a physical therapy practice. Like, you should come swing on by and get it checked out. Because I told him I was in a lot of pain. And so it was just crazy timing for that to happen, because I don't know how long it would have taken me to go see a physical therapist had I not run into him. So I'm very thankful for that moment, because I think this is where I started to figure things out a little bit more. So I went to his physical therapy practice and I got checked out. And when I went, it kind of came down to, for me, probably tight muscles, but the main thing was weak glutes. There was one specific test that they had me do, and I failed that test so badly that I looked at him and I went, there's no way people are supposed to be able to do that. And he just looked at me and kind of laughed. I was like, oh no, people are definitely supposed to be able to do that. And like, I'll try and describe it for you. Basically, you lay on your side, like just lay like a beam, like as straight as you can. And then you're going to lift your outside leg up, and then you're going to swing it behind you while still staying on your side. And basically, you're going to have someone lightly press on your leg and try and lower it down. I believe this is, it's like testing your glute medius, I believe. And anyways, my foot just went straight to the ground. Like there was literally no resistance. Like he wasn't even pressing that hard, straight to the ground. After I failed this test, I went to like all my friends. I went to my wife and I was like, let me do this to you. And like no one failed the test. So clearly I had very weak glutes. So anyways, I did a lot of the exercises they provided for me. And I would say for that next month, I was doing great. And then I was doing great. So I said, you know what? I'm going to stop doing the exercises. And then I got hurt again. And, this is a common trope I think a lot of people fall into. Like, oh, hey, I'm doing great. I did my exercises. Those were kind of annoying. They take up a lot of time. I'm going to stop now. You can't stop. You have to keep going even when you feel good. Like, you got to keep strengthening that up. So that was summer 2024. And I dealt with back pain all the way until now. I'm still dealing with back pain. And that was largely due to laziness with the exercises. I would do them, but I wouldn't do them consistently. And also, like, I was still sitting a lot. I wasn't walking very much. And I still had a lot of pickleball to play. And pickleball was beating me up because, as you guys know, these paddle releases are endless. So I have to be on the court a lot to keep up with these. And I hate missing a big release, right? Like, we can't cover every paddle as it is, but missing the ones that I know are more important to you guys drives me crazy. So I would basically choose to beat my body up rather than take care of it. And I could tell it wasn't good for me, but I was like, this is my job. Like, you can't miss these. And so that's why over the last year, like, I've still dealt with a lot of back pain, as I was just choosing to prioritize work and I wasn't changing my lifestyle to fix my back. And recently, I would say in the last month or so, it finally got so bad or so annoying that it was just kind of this breaking point. So my right knee started to really hurt when I would walk, and then my right hip was also in a lot of pain. Like, it felt very tight. It felt very restricted. And this was basically the point where I just went, I can't keep doing this anymore. Like, I'm only 28. I'm about to be 29. I feel like a 70-year-old. This is crazy. No 28-year-old should feel this weak in their body. I was like, it's not worth it. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, you need to change your lifestyle and start doing these exercises. Otherwise, by the time you're 50, you're like not even going to be walking anymore because your back's going to hurt so bad. So I made some pretty big changes. I started walking a significant amount more. I would say days when I wouldn't play pickleball, my step count probably averaged between like 3,000 and 5,000. It was very low. So now I'm trying to make sure I always get over 10,000 steps a day. And one of the things Dr. Stuart McGill talks about is doing like 3 walks a day, 15 to 30 minutes. You do one in the morning, you do one at lunch, and you do one in the evening. And since I work from home, that's easy enough for me to do. So I'm pretty strict about trying to do that. If I can't get all 3, I'll try and do one of them as a longer walk. So the walking has been good for me. And if I get a business phone call, I will go and walk instead of sitting while I do it, which is, how I used to do them. So walking has been a big part of the lifestyle change, and just not sitting so much. Like, it's just, I've said it already, but it's not good for you. Like, you got to stop sitting so much. So that has helped a lot. And then doing all of my glute exercises, my back exercises has been very good for me. I mean, I'm already noticing like a pretty big difference in how my body feels. It's not perfect. I can still tell there's little areas in my back that don't feel great. But now that I've been doing these every single day and doing them very strictly, making sure my form is good, making sure I'm doing the right amount of reps, I'm not cheating reps, it is helping a significant amount. So I would say anyone who's going through back pain, I'm going to leave my newsletter link down below because I talk about more about some of the resources that have helped me, some of the YouTube channels, some of the exercises I've been doing. If you want to hear more about those, just click that newsletter. But yeah, I've tried a lot of things. I mean, there was exercises in the gym. I bought a back extension machine to have at home to try and strengthen my back. I have a backwards treadmill that was to start fixing my knee, and that helped a pretty significant amount. But the encouragement I would give you guys, if you have severe back pain, is go see a physical therapist. Please just go see one. Find one that is highly recommended in your area and have them diagnose what the issue is. Diagnosing the issue yourself, while probably not impossible, is just going to be a slower way to figure it out. They can identify what muscles are weak and tell you what things you should avoid and what things you should be doing. And then when they give you the exercises, you need to actually do them. Don't cheat the reps. Don't take days off on it unless they, recommend you take days off on it. But yeah, just please go see a physical therapist because I think it'll make your life so much easier. And I really wish I had done it much earlier for myself because I think it would have sped a lot of things up. But one of the things that also made me start taking this so much more seriously is I dealt with back pain for 2 years. And had I just done the exercises every day for 2 years, I'd be in a completely different place with my body right now. So that was frustrating. But then I was listening to a YouTube video about back pain, and there was this quote that said something along these lines. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but you spent 10 to 20 years damaging your back, and you really expect to fix your pain in 1 to 3 months? No, this is going to take 1 to 2 years if you're lucky. You have to think about this long term. And I think that really hit me because the way that I kept thinking about these exercises was, well, yeah, like I'm in pain, but if I'm good after a month, like I'm fine, I can stop. And that's not how it works. Like I've spent, probably 13 years in video production damaging my back. I can't expect this to be a couple week fix and I'm out of here. So that really helped me shift this to like a lifestyle change, which is, no, you're probably gonna have to do this like every day for years. And it's a good thing for your body to be doing if you want longevity in your life, which I do want longevity in my life. So it was kind of a wake up call to just change the lifestyle I have right now. Let me look through my notes here. Recently, one of the days I was playing pickleball was the first day in a year and a half, 2 years that I've played pickleball, and I felt normal. And I know I'm going to have flare-ups still. Like I know the issues aren't completely gone, but it was so different and crazy to feel how normal I felt that it was like, I don't know how to describe it. It was just weird. I was like, I can't believe this is what it's like to have your body feel normal. Like I've dealt with pain for so long that it was crazy to believe my body could function in this way and feel good about it. So that was like really exciting progress for me to be like, yeah, keep going, keep doing this. Otherwise, yeah, I think that's mostly it, guys. I think a quote I'll leave you guys with is actually something I have. You might see it in the background of a podcast here and there, but I have this little poster in our basement that just says, do something today your future self will thank you for. And that's another thing when I think about that, it's like, man, I really wish past me had done something that future me could be thanking him for right now. But instead I'm going like, dude, why did you skip the workouts? Like we could be in such a better spot if you had done that. So my encouragement to all of you would be do something today your future self will thank you for, because you'll, probably be happy you did. And I think for those of you who are healthy right now, you're probably listening to this going like, man, it doesn't matter. Like I'm healthy. I feel fine. Like I don't need to do any of this stuff. My encouragement to you would be all it takes is one bad injury that like significantly deteriorates your quality of life for you to realize that you should have been doing this, because that was my mindset the whole time. I'm like, I'm young. I'm fine. I don't have any pain. Like I don't need to worry about this. I'll worry about it when something starts hurting. And then I didn't. And then my quality of life went down so much and made me feel so bad that now I understand like, yeah, I'm never going to do that again. Like I will not take my back health for granted, because some of the things I just wasn't able to do, like bending over and tying my shoes, or like picking up slightly heavy objects was really difficult, or getting up and off the couch, or rolling out of bed in the morning. Like those are all things you shouldn't have to worry about. And I had to worry about them. And now I'll make sure I never do that again. So anyways, long ramble there. If you guys are still listening, I hope you found that helpful. And again, check out that newsletter down in the description if you want more information. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you next week. And yeah, thanks for listening.